I just wanted to say welcome again at the new little session of storytellings of the mobile exhibition Show Your Hope. And today we start with a painting from Filipino. The painting is called Hoping for Hope. And it's a nice, joyful painting. And the guy, Joseph Ederlin, he says, I always believe that one of art's purposes is to propose new worlds, different from the one we already know. Art, he says, also makes us pay attention for things we normally take for granted. Moreover, it also offers a way out, especially when things become unbearable. In other words, a promise of discovery, a promise of surprise, and a promise of hope. That is what art is all about. Good start for this little session with weird stories from around the world. For example, I do not know from which world is this, but this is a painting made by Peter Donkers. And Peter Donkers, actually, he is a rock and roll guitar player. I didn't know that he was also a painter, but he really wanted to make a painting, and he did, and at the final end he came to my house to bring me this painting. And the painting is called Ashtor's Eight, the Eight of Ashtor. Do you know Ashtor? Neither did I. So I asked him, hey Peter, who is Ashtor? He says, you don't know Ashtor? Oh, you should really know him, because he's really important. I said, really? Never heard of him. Oh, you really should know him because Ashtor, he's the captain of the Big White Brothers. The Big White Brothers? Who are the Big White Brothers? Have you never heard of the Big White Brothers? Oh, you should really, really know them because, they saved the earth against the Ananuki. Against the who? Against the Ananuki. Are you making a joke or something? No, he says. If we would go to Mars and we ask anybody on Mars, who is the Ananuki? They point immediately at the Earth. I guess the guy wanted to say that we cannot blame the Martians for the trouble we made on this planet, that is on our own credits. Peter, always good, always straight, tough guy, good guy. And then we got this painting. This is a painting, something strange happened. As I mentioned you before, what do? We invite artists. And if we invite artists and they accept the invitation, then we give them this panel, and then we give them time, and then we come and pick it up. But in this case, something strange happened. I was in Berlin to make a selection of international artists in Berlin. And there was a location, the Helfrich Art Gallery, by the way. Thank you, Michaela. But she invited maybe 10, 12 artists or something. And normally I have a personal meeting and I invite the artist. But in this case, there's 12 people. And I tell what I have to tell. And halfway my story, 6 of them already said, oh, great plan. I want to participate. Give me one panel. But the other half, they still had questions. However, when you are in a group, and 6 of them say already, okay, good, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to ask all those questions. And finally, at the end of the day, Lee Yong-sik, one artist from Korea living in Berlin, he went home with this white panel under his arm with the idea that Dutchman wants to make me a painting. That was not really inspiring. But he's a smart guy. So what did he do? He waited, and he waited, and he waited. And then one day we have an exhibition in Berlin with the big yellow truck, and he came there with this white empty panel under his arm, and he came to me and he said, okay, so let me first see what is the quality of your exhibition, because if it's a bad quality, I prefer not to participate. And he was having a look at all the paintings. Fantastic paintings. So about quality, he says, I'm okay, that's fine. And what about the stories? So I told him one story, and another story, and another story, and we sticked around there for 3-4 hours telling stories. That was really, really fun, hot night in Berlin, super. And that night, 9 months after I met him first time, that night, Lee Yong-sik again walked home with this white panel, but now with the idea, I want to make a painting for that Dutch guy. So that was much more inspiring. But afterwards, Lee said, so you see, I started serious, and the way you start, you should continue to make a circle. So I started serious, and I continued serious. That's why, he says, I made the painting of a tiger, because the tiger is the national symbol of our country, Korea. But I'm a little tricky, so I ask him immediately, North or South Korea? And he says, that's where the trouble started, you know what? Because I realized not only North and South Korea have the tiger as a national symbol, but also Laos and Thailand and Taiwan and so I'm having trouble, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, and I realize in Albania, in Poland, and in America, they all use the eagle as a national symbol. In other words, we, human beings, we choose an animal not to represent us, Americans or Albanians or Polish or Korean, but we choose animals to represent us, people. You see, I started serious and I continued serious. And in this case, he says, I put the most smart tiger, a very distinguished tiger. He's the smartest tiger on the world. This tiger is so smart. He knows all the tricks that he learned in his life in order to survive, but he also remembered all the tricks that his parents learned him in order to survive. And this smart tiger, he's a modern tiger, he also learned the tricks that his children, his offspring, learned in order to survive in the new times. And on such way, he says, so you see, I started actually with the idea of representing people. And so I ask him, wait a minute. You speak about learning the tricks in order to survive. Are you now speaking about tigers, or are you now speaking about people? And Lee looked at me with a satisfied smile on his face, as if I had understood what he tried to say, and he said, you see, I made a very serious painting. And I agree with him. And also a nice painting, by the way. And, so, you know what actually happens? That's why I took this painting now to tell you something. Because at the end, you know, people start wondering, why do you do this? Or why do people do all those things they do anyway? And we have learned one of the most important things is to make contact. And this is what happened with this lady. Her name is Chaima Safori. She's from the city of Sfax in Tunisia. And she came with this painting, and she told me it was actually a nice moment because we were 4 people and one host. He took us to a little museum, and the 2 other people gave us a little time, so we had a quiet corner, and it was really intimate, nice meeting, very gentle, very friendly, and a beautiful lady, and I tried to be nice and charming as well, and this is how it started, very good. And she gave me this painting, and she said, it's called Me and My Boat. And I asked her immediately, okay, good title. Can I ask you, are you happy on your boat? And then she said, well, that is actually a very difficult question. Okay. So I started to speak about something else, and we started up, let's say, the conversation again, and it was kind of funny because she mentioned something that actually she started like this, and she didn't want to go and make a boat, but it just became something like this. And actually she says, I'm not extremely happy with my painting because usually I use much more colors, and on such a way, actually, there were 3-4 things. She was not absolutely satisfied with herself, but meanwhile, one thing happened continuously, which is the most important thing that artists can do. I mean, if you are a dancer or a poet or a painter, there is actually only one thing which is universal for all those artists. The only thing that they need to do, that they need to achieve, was to make contact. And that's what we did. So we had a fantastic meeting, and I'm very happy with her. I still speak with her frequently, and she's a beautiful lady. She shows us that making contact is beyond all meaning and mission and message. They come together. Actually, that goes further. Let me tell you a funny story. This is a painting from a man called Masoud Shoya Tabatabai. Look, there it says, Masoud Shoya Tabatabai. Masoud Shoya Tabatabai. And Masoud, he is the director of the Iranian House of Cartoonists. And the Iranian House of Cartoonists is, let's say, the general organization of cartoonists in Iran. Very well organized. And that is the reason why you see so many Iranian artists participating in cartoon contests, because they're very well organized. And but Iran is a little bit strange country. You know, you start wondering, what do we actually know about Iran? And there's many people that know something about it, but most of the people only know what they read in the newspaper. And you cannot be sure about many things, but the only thing you can be sure about is that you're not really sure about. That's a little bit the situation. What happened to us in Iran, that was kind of funny. I was with two other people, Bart and Irene, beautiful people. They were traveling with us. And they usually have a GPS machine. They like to travel. And then when they go to Mexico or to Tehran or to wherever, the first thing they do is they go to their hotel, then they push their GPS machine, which says this is point zero, and then they go for a walk, spazieren, take a rickshaw, do whatever they want, just to get some fresh air, to get some idea of the city. And then when they want to go home, they push their machine again, and the machine says 2 kilometers that way, and you find point zero. And this is how they always find their hotel. And however, when they want to have a walk in Tehran, Mr. Masoud said, "Oh, my son will walk with you." And after 3 times, Bart says, "I think we are being spied on." And I said to him, "Well, maybe yes, but maybe no. I mean, you also have a guide and a translator with you, so what's the problem?" See, you never really know, you know. And so that happens also. For example, there was another thing. We have a painting here somewhere in the hall. We might see it later on, where you see one lady, a white lady, looking in the mirror, and she sees a black lady in the mirror. But they are in a night dress, so you see all this naked arms and neck, which is not allowed in Iran. So when we make the exhibition, Mr. Masoud and another colleague of him had to go and have a test and check up if we do not show paintings that were not allowed. And that painting of Helene van Stralen, I hoped it was here, but it is not. We will see it later. That painting was taken out. And my friend says, "We are being censored." I said, "Yes, but no. I mean, 1, 2 paintings we cannot show. But 78 others we can." Uno momento. So, are we being censored or are we being supported? You never really know. Huh? Masoud's smart guy. I already told you he's the head of the Iranian House of Artists. And you must know, the Iranian revolution didn't start as an Islamic revolution, but it started as a communistic revolution, only later being taken over by Islamists. So in the beginning of the revolution, the Iranian House of Cartoonists was already established with this communistic idea. And so sometimes we start wondering, is Mr. Masoud the one who speaks in the name of the cartoonist and says to the government, "Don't go too far, otherwise we don't listen"? Or is Mr. Masoud working for a state organization, the one who says to the cartoonist, "Everything okay, but don't cross the border"? You never know. And even if he became your good friend and you ask him in a situation where for sure nobody is listening, then still you are not sure if he's going to give you a political correct answer or a friendly correct answer or a familiar correct answer. You never know. Smart guy. Meanwhile, Mr. Masoud saw our box with empty panels. And after 2 days, we came to his office, and there was an empty white panel on his office, on his desk. And he was looking at it, and I saw, okay, he took one, and we will see what happens. And indeed, when we were the last day in the office to say goodbye to him, there was this white panel with this little cartoon. And Mr. Masoud looks at me and he says, "Look, Martin, this is me. I hope you can say something beautiful about my country." And I do that with pleasure, Mr. Masoud, because your country is a fantastic place. Beautiful people, beautiful country. There's more stories which get into politics. For example, this one. This is a painting of Domien Koppelmans. And Domien Koppelmans is the most recalcitrant, obnoxious type in my city. If you do not know what is obnoxious, go and drink a cup of coffee with him and for sure you end up in a fight. That is obnoxious. That is what he is. And I remember he came to the studio where we were making pictures for the catalog, and he came there at the very, very last moment with this painting. He had a hangover, and the painting was like this because he made it the night before and put it on the heating to dry. Well, now it's getting better. And so he came with the painting, he gave it to me, and he says, today I'm not in the mood to tell you anything about the painting. And he left. So afterwards, I must go and find Domien Koppelmans in order to find a little story. And I found him after a few days in a bar. And he was there, pretty drunk. And I walked in and I sat next to him on the bar and I asked him, hey, Domien, can you tell me something about the painting you gave me a few days ago? And Domien looks at me and he says, I already told you 1,000 times, didn't I? I said, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. I told you so many times, every time it's the same. Why do you keep on asking me? I said, I never asked you before, By the way, and they keep on shouting, and I told you before there was enlightenment, and our parents have been fighting for our freedom, and I thought today is not a good day to ask Domien Koppelmans what is exactly the content of his painting. So I'll see you another time, And indeed, 2 days later, I found him in the same bar. He was there again, or maybe he was still there. At least he was much more drunk. He saw me coming in. Immediately, he runs to me. He tries to catch me, and he says, I already told you 1,000 times. Why do you ask me again? This is impossible. I already told you the light went on, and our parents have been fighting for it. I said, what? The light went on, and our parents have been fighting for individuality. What? It turns out to be a really difficult word to say when you're drunk, individuality. But something happened here. Wait a minute. The first time he says there was enlightenment, and our parents have been fighting for our freedom. That was the Enlightenment after the French Revolution, was a little bit in the same period as when our parents were fighting for Holland to be an independent country, the Netherlands. And the second time, he says, the light went on. That was 150 years later, when Philips came to our city and made light bulbs. And in that time, they started with this liberalism and individuality. But that was 150 years later. So I think the guy is confusing something. This is also not a good idea to ask him. So I say to him, next time we'll talk again. And indeed, another few days, I saw him in another bar. He saw me walking on the street. He says, come in, come in. And so I went in and says, so did you understand what I tried to say? I say, no. He says, well, it was clear, Our parents have been fighting for our freedom, and that was during the time of the Enlightenment. And 150 years later, the light went on because Philips came to our city, and our parents have been fighting for our individuality. But we should not think another 150 years later, let's say 20 years into the future, our parents have ever been fighting for our egoism, because they have never done that. Get that one. Some people have the talent to keep up the big story, while on the surface they look completely destroyed. But be careful, because the real story was still there. Nice, nice, nice. Let me tell you another story, which I think is a very important story. A story that I should not only share with you, but you should also share with the other people. Why not? This is a story about Alex Rodin. And Alex Rodin is a very big artist from Belarus. Peace maybe with Belarus these days. And he lives in Berlin. But he's very big, not only as a man, but his paintings are this thick with big paintings with big paint on it. But he also has a very big character. And I had invited him. I visited his workshop several times. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I gave him a little panel. And when I came to pick it up, he says, I made you this sketch. and probably you will find your story. Thank you. And usually I have some creative reaction to ask what is the relation with the image, etc., etc. But this guy is so big. The only thing I could say was, okay, danke zeer, thank you very much, hvala ti lepo. And I walked home and I thought, damn, I have to go and find a story. I usually don't like finding stories. I like to tell the stories of the artists themselves. But that was already past. So I was thinking about it and spent another few days in Berlin, and I went home to Holland, and I arrived somewhere in the night, and I want to chill out before I go to sleep, and I put on the television, and on the television just one TV program started, and it was said, this is a scientific program. It's the third chapter, and the program is called Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. The three slogans of the French Revolution of the Enlightenment. Liberté, freedom, Égalité, equality, Fraternité, brotherhood, bratstvo, broederschaft. And I think, hey, broederschaft, that is where my painting is about. So maybe I should listen. And they announced it as a scientific program, and the question is, why do we feel good when we do something good for somebody else? And I thought, now that is a serious question. So I watched the program. And what did they do in this program? They show all kinds of sociological research as has been taking place the last 20, 30, 40 years. And they gave examples of this. They made a copy of it, but just to show how it works. And one of the experiments was a fantastic experiment. What did they do? They take 10 candidates. They take 10 spaces, small spaces, and the candidates get 3 items. They get a candle, they get a box of matches, and they get a few thumbnails. And the question is, can you light the candle without holding it in your hand or putting it on the floor? And what turns out to be the case, what can you do? You can take the box of matches, empty it, fold it, put it with thumbnails in the wall, and you have a little platform. Then you can light your match, you can light your candle, you can drip a little bit, you can put it on, and there you are. It turns out to be that human beings, they have done this project, this experiment with thousands of people. It turns out to be that human beings, average, take between 2 and 5 minutes to find that solution. That was the first part of the experiment. And then they did the second part of the experiment, exactly the same with one difference. They said to the candidates, the one who will go fast will get 1,000 euro. And what do you think will happen? Indeed. Everybody took much longer time to find the solution. Because what happens? Since they were so focused, they only see this instead of this. They were not using their creativity anymore. They were using their speed and their efficiency and their urge for competition to win the money. And because of that, they were focusing too much on one idea and not enough on all the ideas. And the result is that human beings need 2, 3, 4 times more time to find the solution with the 1,000 euro award than they do without the 1,000 euro award. So what is the conclusion of this little story? That competition might be good, possible, but not for human beings and creativity. It will be probably good for somebody else. What is good for humanity and what is good for human beings is to have an open mind and to be able to see all the possibilities available as we have created. So, I can go back to Berlin and meet Alex Rodin and tell him, dear Mr. Alex, I have found your story. It's a great story, and I'm sure he will be happy with it. In order to finish this next little presentation as we've been doing, I would like to show you the most favorite painting on schools. Actually, in another session, we made the painting completely blue with a little yellow dot. That is also very popular in schools, but this one also. This is a painting of Desmond Ingham. And Desmond, we have been making once a selection with artists from my city. But in my opinion, if you're going to look in your own city, you must look further. You must make sure you do not only find what you know, but also find what you do not know. And on such a way, we got a telephone number of the psychiatric clinic, because there they have an activity center and people are painting as well. And we wanted to leave one panel there. And we did. And the lady called me, and finally she gave me the telephone number of Desmond Ingham. They gave the panel to Desmond Ingham. And they told me, be careful with Desmond, because he's not too smart. And he drinks too much. I do not want to say that if you drink that you're not smart, but in this case he drinks too much. Actually, I also don't want to say that you're not smart when you drink too much, because it can happen. But this guy drinks always too much, up to delirium, to non-stop being drunk, and that's a little bit not so smart. And another reason to be a little bit careful with him is because he is kind of sensitive these days, because his mother died. And I understand that. So one day I call him to ask him if he wants to participate, and I got him on the phone and I said, hello Desmond, you speak with Martin, I got your number from, and I want to ask him, and I must say one other thing before I continue, wait a minute. Because, so what does he do? When he's getting into delirium being drunk, he goes to the clinic, he knocks the door and he says, help me, help me. And then they open the door for him, of course, because they know him, and he can stay there 2-3 months in order to get sober. And when he's there 2-3 months, he's spending his time in the activity center and he's painting. He paints dogs. He can paint dogs very well. He painted already many of them. And so this was the moment that I called him. So I have him on the phone and I say, hey, hello Desmond, I'm Martin. I got your number from blah, blah, blah. And I want to ask you, do you want to make a painting about hope? And Desmond says, hope? What kind of dog is that? No, man, no dog, but hope, as you have in your heart or in your head or in your heart or in your head or something. Huh? And he says, I never done that before, I don't know. And I said, well, that is why we ask the artist, but take your time, we have a lot of time. You know what? Here is my telephone number. If you want to participate, call me, I will bring you a panel, and after that, there will be more than enough time. He says, okay. And 2 weeks later, he called me. He says, hey, can you bring me the panel? I said, yes, I only need your address and I will come right away. Oh, good. So I went to his house and I gave him, and there's Desmond. But you must realize Desmond is a rock and roll guy with hair like this and a leather jacket and tattoos and his beard like this and a big belly and a tough guy and I asked him, so Desmond, why did you decide to participate? Yeah, he says, many people, I paint dogs, I said, yeah, I heard. Yeah, many people come to me with a dog and they want to have it again. Do you understand that? I said, no. He says, neither do I. They come to me, for example, and they ask me, when can you finish the dog? I said, do I have to finish the dog? But usually that's not the case. Or they ask me, how much do we have to pay you? They don't ask me how much I need. They only ask how much they have to pay. In other words, these people come to me because they have something and they want to have it again or more or double or something. But I'm not really interested, I paint dogs anyway for fun and not for money. And besides that, my mother died and I'm in a complete different situation now. However, he says, your question, what I hope, I'm thinking about that now for already 2 weeks. I have not found yet the answer, but for already 2 weeks I feel a little bit better. And that's why I participate. Good reason. So I gave him the panel and I said, I'll be back in 2 months. Good. 2 months later, I come back and here again is this guy with this beard and leather jacket, blah, 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 with this painting. And he looks as happy as a child. I said, what have you done, Desmond? Well, I painted the universe because we all live in the universe, right? Somewhere we are here in one of the smallest universes and on a very small solar system, in a small planet, in a small country, in a small gallery, and we hope that life is good, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and this, he says, this is my mother. I made her in the shape of a heart because I still love her very much. And this, he says, is a little ash from the urn of my mother. And then I hope when you guys travel around the world with this yellow truck, my sweet dear little mother can make a last journey around the world. What do you say? Well, I can tell you what I said. I said, thank you, Desmond. What a fantastic piece of yourself that you just gave to us to show to the people in the world. I wanted to share that with you, and the next time we share another number of stories of the mobile exhibition here, semi-live from Alcatraz, and not in California, but in Metelkova, Ljubljana, Slovenia, Europe, Southeast. See you later.